So hello everyone and welcome and thank you for taking the time to join us for the second academic integrity series at Bournemouth University. So I'm Dr. Steph Allen. I'm from the Faculty of Media and Communication at Bournemouth. Today we will be exploring the basics of Gen AI technologies, including ChatGPT, and the strengths and weaknesses of those tools. We'll also look at the applications of Gen AI in assessment beyond traditional essays. Knowing a bit about these tools can help us consider how teaching and assessment needs to be considered for the future. So many of you already know our special guest speaker, Dr. Thomas Lancaster, but Dr. Lancaster is known across the world for research into contract cheating and academic integrity, publishing his first research paper on contract cheating back in 2006. Thomas is a senior teaching fellow in the Department of Computing at Imperial College London and a senior tutor for MSc students in that department. He's widely published, a popular keynote at many events, and has been known to grace Radio 4 and is the holder of the prestigious Tracy Brewtag Award 2023 for Academic Integrity. Thomas coordinates the London and South East England Academic Integrity Network and is a member of the QAA Advisory Group on Academic Integrity and the European Network for Academic Integrity, amongst others. So let me hand over to the expert who will talk about AI assistance or AI replacement, an academic integrity conversation, Dr. Thomas Lancaster. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you so much, Steph. It's fantastic to have so many people from around the world joining us today. Hopefully everybody can see and hear okay. I can see some comments in the chat that most people are interacting. And this is an interactive session. I've called it a conversation because I've talked a lot about generative AI and academic integrity there. And the thing that comes back to me quite often when I do sessions is that we're almost trying to run before we can walk. And we don't always know quite what this technology is, quite what it can do, quite how it can be used, and depending on your viewpoint, misused. So what I want to do during the course of the next 50 minutes or so is to show you some things that I can do with this technology, to talk through some of the information, also quite happily take questions. Now, we did set out with a brief. Quite how closely I will stick to exactly what Steph just said is always open to question, depending what you put in the chat and what comes up. I saw on Twitter or X, I'm Dr. Lancaster there, if anyone wants to live tweet or to follow me, that there are people saying, why is this conversation always about academic integrity and AI? Well, partly because it is an academic integrity series, and because that's my interest. But I'm not going to say so much directly about what academic integrity is today, perhaps a lot more about the technology itself, the kind of things that it can be used for and that students can do there. And I probably will mention the word essay occasionally because this comes up all the time. Even though I am a computer scientist, we don't tend to set many essays. We can take all other types of assignments there. But I want you to think also as we go through about the wider business implications about this type of technology, but also if we set assignments that are non-essay based, perhaps less traditional, and the kind of thing that a student could do in the workplace. Could this technology do this? Would a student be using the technology, generative AI, in the workplace too, in these ways for that? Is this something we should be teaching them? Is this something we should be trying to avoid? There is no correct and definitive answer across the sector about all of this, but a few pointers on the slides, things to think about. AI technology, what does it do? How does it work? And perhaps to think about how we should and could react there. So I'm going to start off with a question just to get us going. What's the next word in this phrase? And we'll crowdsource the answer to all of you. The cat sat on the... And we're getting mat, sofa, mat, there, roof, mat, wall, chair, table, rat, hat, bed. We all likely to rhyme for some reason. All kinds of other things, worktop, couch. So I'm going to do a little experiment. Hopefully experiment number one will work quite nicely. Let me move various things out of the way on my screen so I can actually bring this to the forefront. The challenge is having so many windows. So I've got here a little Google Colab notebook. It's just some Python code, essentially. I've started it running and it's installed various things. You don't have to understand computer code, but with a bit of luck, if I push this button here and enter the phrase, apologies, a little bit small. The cat sat on the... And so what this is doing now is it is contacting GPT-2. That's an older version of GPT. There, the same technology as in ChatGPT. It's got 100 answers about what the next possible word should be. And it's got the top 10 of these and come back based on this prediction there. So according to a large language model, one that was developed a few years ago now, but is completely free, hence why I've used it, then the most likely next word is the cat sat on either the couch or the floor there. So our human intuition is, because we often hear this phrase, the cat sat on the mat, all the time. I've even used it, I think, in research papers and talks before as an example of words and how they work. But actually, if you're going to look inside books and papers and websites in context and see what kind of words were being used, and actually you get this kind of distribution you see on the screen. And this is just an approximation there with 100 possible ways of continuing this and taking the top 10 answers, of which some of them clearly occur multiple times for that, but actually Matt doesn't occur in the top 10 at all because it's not really used in that context. But what we're seeing is how a large language model works in a very simplistic way there. It knows about a series of previous words, it makes a prediction about what's going to come next, and then using some kind of random process, it could choose whatever this is, 15% of the time it will give you couch, 15% of the time it will give you floor, and so on down these to work out the next word. Now, this is quite a simplified viewpoint, so please don't let me try and convince you this is what happens all the time there, because there are other factors that will feed into this with more sophisticated models there. But it is very much about prediction with a certain amount of using patterns and randomization there. And of course, if we said the cat sat on the couch, you could then make it a prediction about what the next word would be until it builds up its sentences within a certain piece of context. Now, I am a computer programmer. This is actually the first time I've ever made one of these notebooks. This is just running in my Google account on a virtual machine somewhere using very little power. And I could have programmed this from scratch, but what actually happened was I basically asked ChatGPT to write this for me. I came up with a slightly different question. I actually, to start off, asked it to write about United States of and predict the next word. And I just won't go through all the details of this, but it came up with various predictions within ChatGPT. And I said, okay, can you turn this into some runnable code or a Jupyter notebook, which is what this is really. Did it do this? Frankly, no. Frankly, it took about 5 or 6 times of me saying, you got this wrong and you need to go away and you need to make some changes there. And then I ended up making a few changes myself and error messages, but it did something I've not done before in far less time that it would have took to do this for myself. And these are the kind of things that we can do using tools like ChatGPT there. So if I was to just go back to my official set of slides there, as I say, it started out as a ChatGPT experiment to see how well this would work there. There's a few more bits on the slides about what was going on when I share these afterwards. But this is the essence of a large language model. Advanced AI algorithms, machine learning technology essentially, which will help us to understand human language, to generate new language, and to interpret requests. And the quality of the output is going to depend very closely on the quality of the input. And we're talking vast amounts of human knowledge that have gone into this training. There, thousands of, well, millions of words, billions of words, trillions of words, I believe, in the case of GPT-4, some of these most recent versions of this information. And it's limited. It will make mistakes. It will generate incorrect information there. It may be biased if the information coming in is biased. It may be biased if we make questions and we're trying to direct the system to have biases in its output. I'll show you an example of that later on. It may hallucinate, this word we've seen about incorrect information that looks convincing as part of this process. But these are the kind of things that we expect to see from a large language model. So I'll give a very quick overview about how this works there. The way a technology like ChatGPT works, so we can access a large language model. This is not the only way we can access a large language model through a chatbot. I can access this in different ways, otherwise as well. There, we have input. Often a chatbot is the side of it's a prompt. It runs through one of many large language models out there on the market, and we get some output. Now, actually, there's a bit more going on than this. There are all kinds of random numbers. I'll call them seeds for the purpose of this. So we don't always get the same output every time we make the same request, because this randomization is in here. There are also parameters. So we, depending how we access this, we can control how creative do we want the output to be. So there are all kinds of things we do. Do we want this to repeat words multiple times in the same conversation, or to use different words? And so we can vary things. It's slightly hard to do this through a ChatGPT style interface, but it's slightly easier in other ways. And as Olo in the chat mentions, yeah, there's all kinds of corpus linguistics to think about in here, which actually makes this quite a complex area. We may go into detection in a few minutes' time. But in the case of a chat model, we also take that output to use that to feed into the next bit of the conversation. So if we're using a chatbot, then it knows what we've requested before. It knows the context of the conversation, so that hopefully the next bit of output is slightly better. But as part of all of this, there's what's known as a context window, that our chat can remember a certain amount of previous information. It might remember the 5,000 previous words. That's a slight oversimplification for people who know about this area. But once we've asked it for 5,000 more words, we'll then be in a position where it forgets what happens at the start of the conversation. So it can start going off at a tangent because it doesn't remember things. There are all kinds of techniques we can use to get around this, which is where prompt engineering comes in. We're about thinking about how we prompt the system and what we do with it. But this is essentially the essence of what we're seeing in things like ChatGPT. I've started to use ChatGPT as a bit of a brand name. It's almost the Kleenex of tissues, or the Xerox of photocopiers, or the Hoover of vacuum cleaners. But there are lots of other large language models out there. And these are some commercial LLMs that you might have come across. There's a whole series of GPT models, GPT-2, 3, and 4. GPT-2, I think, was released about 5 years ago now. GPT-3, sometime, I believe, the start of last year, but it became best known because people accessed it through ChatGPT. GPT-4, more recently, there are 3.5s and various refinements of these models in between. We can access all of these through ChatGPT, free version and paid version. I think that 4 is only available through the paid version. We can access it through the OpenAI Playground, which is an alternative way to experiment with the code. Microsoft uses a lot of this technology now. So through things like Bing Chat or Copilot, as it's known nowadays, API access, so we can programmatically access these. And there are various other routes there built into all kinds of technology. And if you see things, many of the tools that are built on top of large language models on the web, I'll show you some examples on the next slide, they tend to use GPT technology. But there are rival technologies. There's things like Claude 2, which is pretty good. It's largely free. It's got a lot of the features of ChatGPT. Some people much prefer it there. There's Palm 2, which you access through Google Bard, which is Google's alternative. I think Google has another alternative now, but Bard is the main one that we tend to talk about. I've never found that quite so convincing, but some of these tools work slightly differently when generating text in different situations. And I say generate text, but as you may have spotted with that demo, we can also generate source code. We can generate images using a slightly different technology, which is often integrated in here as well. There, we can generate websites. We could run code inside some of these systems now as well. There's all kinds of things we can do. It's having a whole toolbox available straight away. And from the academic integrity point of view, and I know we don't always use essays, but you search for essay writing AI in Google, and you'll come up with a list of tools, something like this one. These are most definitely not there as recommendations or anything like that. But as they say, you can very quickly generate an essay. Now, to me, I see no good reason to go to this tool rather than go to ChatGPT or go to the underlying technology. But I know how to access it. I can program it, and I can work with this technology. But if not, you can find these type of tools. Some are better than others because they're designed to work well in certain situations. Now, we may think we're talking a bit about things like ChatGPT. Let's bring ChatGPT back up. I'll just start a new chat. I'm sure many of you have played around with this type of technology, but let's say you want an essay writing on something. Anyone got something you'd like an essay writing on? Hopefully not too obscure, because I'd like this to work within about 5 minutes. But if you have a shrinkflation, okay, Pico Train, that's a nice catchy name there. Okay, I am so let's do like write an essay about shrinkflation. This should be in the style of a first-year university student. Let's I'm just going to say write a 500-word essay, so we're not here all afternoon or evening or night looking at this one. Includes some mistakes in the way of human rights there. Leave spaces for references. And indicate these with XXX, kind of thing that I would just ask for. Have a catchy title. This is not a brilliant prompt for people who are into prompt engineering for that one. Yeah, there's some very, very great ones in the chat, but shrinkflation has got there first. ChatGPT, I find a little bit slow at the moment for various reasons, because it is so commonly used for this one. But we've got the shrinking reality of our wallets, unraveling the mystery of shrinkflation. We may have to leave this running in the background if it's going to be quite this slow today, but these are the kind of things. Just for, okay, it has left me a placeholder here for a citation to go in afterwards for that one. And we can do much better things than this. We can give it a structure and say, work in this structure. We could ask it first, say, come up with your structure first, and then we can review the structure and ask it to go away and to improve it for this. But these are the kind of things we could be doing. Now, there are all kinds of tricks you can read about on the internet to try and improve the quality of this essay. The writing style to me is pretty good. I'd quite like a few more citations in there. But one of the kind of things that I might do, let's bring this to the forefront while it's generating, is just have a quick look on somewhere like Google Scholar and see what kind of research papers we've got on shrinkflation, and hopefully this one will work. And we could ask it go away and find this for itself, but this is probably not a terribly good example, but let's just try this live. Yeah, I need to be logged in for that one. Let's find something that looks like it may be quite recent, since 2022. There, here, this one is an HTML. It may be complete rubbish, but at least we have a few references here. They're not all academic. If we had more time, I'd go away and find a better example. But here we go, right? I would say something like, below is a list of references. They are badly formatted. Choose some references from the list and add them as citations in place of the X's. Hopefully that's the right number, and then add a reference list at the end. And let's just paste those in, and it'll probably go away now and follow all those kind of things together. And hopefully it will now replace some of those X's with appropriate citations. That was not a perfectly written prompt for this there. And people in the chat I see are talking about GPT-0 and detection technology and everything else like that there. It doesn't work. I will show you a slide on that in a few minutes' time, or I would certainly not rely on it in any way of penalizing students or anything alongside that. But with a bit of luck, we will have the same essay, and I think there was somewhere an XXX coming up. Yeah, well, it's added a number 2, and I should probably have said APA format or something like that. Yeah, so the prompt I gave it was, below is a list of references. They are badly formatted. Choose some references from the list and add them as citations in place as XXX's. Add a reference list at the end. And the reference list I just grabbed from that paper. It's not a very good set of references because they're not very academic, but not all student references are very good. So it is adding them. Now, whether these citations actually relate very well to the content is another question, but I can say that is an issue when I mark student work as well. It's even an issue if you review academic papers there and people just sprinkle their citations in. So hopefully we have this list. Now, we can also output files with this. And I could say, save this as a Word document for me, and it would hopefully come up with a nicely formatted Word document. Because it's working so slowly today, I'm not going to try that one live on the webinar, but by all means, go ahead and play around with that for yourself. And I could ask it to do various things. I could say, change the referencing format. It is just working with words as a large language model in the way that it does. Now, your take home from this should be, don't rely on loads of essays, but you could generate slides as well to go with this. And shrinkflation, apart from when I shop and I don't have as much in there, is not something I know so much about. So hopefully we are at least getting some references, ideally not an exact copy of the previous reference list, because that makes it detectable using technology such as Turnitin, but we are seeing these kind of things in there. So that's the kind of thing you can do. You can ask for slides as well. It may or may not format them very well, and many other things to go with it. So quite powerful technology potentially if you use it in the right way for that. Okay, this is just really basic. That's 101 with what you can do with this. And detection technology has come up in the chat. People are trying to do better detection technology because in theory, if AI always writes in the same style, we should be able to detect it. This is a recent set of tweets because there are computer science people working on this. Somebody said, Nicholas there, that just released a brilliant state-of-the-art technology solution, Ghostbuster, which detects AI more often than any other tool, and challenged people to try and beat this and show it didn't work. Well, that is not the kind of thing you ever want to ask to do in this field. So very quickly, someone with a very catchy name there, which I will not try and pronounce. What did they do? They put the academic paper into ChatGPT and said, come up with a strategy that defeats this new detection algorithm. And they did that. They ran the ChatGPT output through Ghostbuster, and they got a 1% likelihood that this text was generated by AI. So you can actually use tools like ChatGPT to go and defeat this type of technology. And there are lots of information about detection technology out there. There are some things in the chat, people saying that essentially it's a coin flip about whether it detects it correctly. There are people who will say, well, the Declaration of Independence was written by AI according to this technology there. So it is not particularly reliable, but it's just amazing these kind of things you can do with a large language model like ChatGPT. And please do read the chat because this is incredibly good. And I will say that you're perhaps more likely to be able to detect GPT-2, which I showed you earlier, because that's quite old, GPT-3, maybe GPT 3.5. As this technology gets better and better, then it writes in a more human way, and it's more difficult. And yes, if, as is mentioned in the chat, you know how to edit the prompts to tell it to do certain things, then you can make it near impossible to detect this reliably and consistently. Yes, you will detect it some of the times, but it could just be purely by luck there. And wow, Dustin, 38,000 students around the world there who are trying to work out how to use this technology. I'm glad that is not my class. I can barely fit my students in the room. And I completely agree in the chat about false positives. I really would never want to falsely accuse a student about using AI when they shouldn't be. 100% agree with that. AI agents have been in the news recently. I'm not going to do this live, although I do have a demo about this one. But essentially, you can get different different large language models or GPTs talking to one another. So I've got an example on my Twitter here, something that I've just taken from another field, but essentially get a one AI technology to write an essay, then get the other technology to review the essay and suggest improvements. So in other words, the second one is simulating as if this is a tutor or a reviewer. And then the student version improves things based on the feedback. They get more feedback again from the reviewer, and you keep going until you get something you're happy with. And so you improve things, and you try and build it up around the model answer. And that is pretty easy to put together there. Kind of things that you could do if you wanted there. Oh, if you've got time, we can come back to that one. It's actually interesting. There's not been a major development in about 2 weeks now, so this slide is almost still current. What else can we do? We can do GPTs. This is ChatGPT's name for their new way of essentially bundling up a prompt. This previous thing slightly timed out at the end, as it can do, but let's put that in one side, and let me have a look at my sidebar. And here is a GPT I very quickly put together for the purposes of a demonstration. We could say something like, create a motivational message and image for Mia, whose grad students need help with writing papers. I've no idea what this will do because I've just put this out of the chat. Sorry, Mia, for picking on you. for this one. If you've got solutions, by the way, please put this all together. But essentially, you may have heard about things like plugins with ChatGPT in the past. This is a new way that people can bundle up and hide away their own prompts, their own data, their own instructions of the system, so other people can run this with all this built-in information. So you could set up a GPT which has access to your own private data or something like that. So this is going away. First of all, it's using the DALL-E technology to generate an image. It's now generating a motivational message. Every word you write brings you closer to mastery. Keep exploring, keep learning for this one. And it's now running a bit of code in the background, which hopefully will put this message on top of the image. I don't guarantee this will work every single time because this is a little bit ad hoc. This is literally the first time I've played around with this particular technology there. But in the background, there's some code running. You can actually cheat and see the Python code it's writing and then going to run in the background going on. And sometimes it puts the text in a good place and it's readable. Sometimes it does a horrible color scheme or it does it in a very tiny font or something like that. But with a bit of luck, we'll get that there. And yeah, there's some excellent suggestions in the chat that people like Anna Mill's work about ideas. I think it's perfectly fine to expose students to this type of technology because they will be using this in the future as well. If you are interested in generating images incidentally with this technology, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going through ChatGPT. Have a look at Bing Chat or Bing Copilot because it will generate multiple versions of images at the same time for this there. This has really slowed down. Now let's see, have we got something appeared? It claims we have. You can view and download the images in this link, right? This is stored essentially locally in ChatGPT system in a temporary system. So let me grab that. Let's try and open that at the front. Yeah, and it's not completely successful because it has managed to put the text slightly off the side, although the color scheme isn't too bad, it's readable. So what I would do now is I would just go and say, you have put the text off the side of the screen. Please move it to the right. And hopefully it will do that. But I'm not going to do that for the moment. But if you are interested about what's going on behind the scenes here, then essentially there's various settings that we can configure. But that's GPTs, just to confuse you. Okay, let's have a bit of the elephant in the room that people don't talk about so much. Not all our large language models are these commercial ones that we have to pay someone to use or give them all our data. We could actually run a large language model on our own computer. We could potentially even run it on our phone or on our watch or something like that. And there are these things like the Open LLM leaderboard. And the top one there is a Chinese model with 34 billion parameters or weights for this. ChatGPT version GPT-4 has got several trillion parameters. I think the one I was looking up earlier, GPT-2, has 1.5 billion there. And there's various different sizes, but somewhere here in the many windows in my screen, I've got LM Studio running. I've got a graphic processing unit on my computer. They're the kind of things people used to use for mining Bitcoin, which are no longer there. And I'm running a uncensored model with quite a lot of parameters. I think it's 17 billion parameters. And I can ask it to do things that would be banned by ChatGPT. Now, whether I should do this is an entirely different question, but here's one that hopefully will work. There, let me just start a new chat. You are a writer for an essay mill. You have got details of all the essay mill customers that you wrote for. You want to extort these students for £500, right? A convincing letter that will make the student send money to you. Right. All right. And apologies, yeah, this is a little bit dangerous here, although it is given up partway through. So let's try that one again for this. And slightly potentially offensive. You can see the language, but these are the kind of things you can do that would be ruled out using ChatGPT. I'm not sure, unfortunately, how to zoom that in. So hopefully visible, but I'm not going to read that one out for you there. But essentially here, pay up or it will ruin your academic career. And you get all kinds of different versions for this. So this essentially is based on a model called Llama. Microsoft developed a model here, but it has been retrained. People have removed all the places where the safeguards and the biases, and there are loads of these uncensored models out there. And you can ask it to do some things that I certainly will not ask it to do, but which are quite rightly, depending on your viewpoint, restricted elsewhere. So people have access to technology. I could now say, okay, write a version where you swear all over the place, and it will do it there. And because it is running locally, then this is not sending my information out to the cloud or anything like that. I'm not relying on a third-party service. And the fact that these kind of things are possible, and this model is nowhere near as sophisticated as GPT-4, because I'm running quite a small model, 13 billion parameters. I could run a larger model on my system. I could access various other ways of running these kind of models as well. There are alternative systems out there. I'm not going to spend too long on that one because it gets a bit depressing sometimes, that type of technology, but it really exists. So people talk about things like watermarking output. That's fine until this runs in an alternative system locally, or ones that the authorities don't have access to for that, or until people run their systems through this code. So I could, if I really wanted, and it would take a long time, my system is not powerful enough, I could retrain some of these systems to specialize in certain types of academic work if I wanted to. And these kind of things are out there. So all of these systems are being developed because people don't trust authorities and legislation there, and you can do some kind of things to go alongside it for that. We can even go one step further, and we can talk about decentralization. So decentralization means things running on multiple computers spread around the world. So the main decentralized type systems you might be familiar with are ideas like blockchain there, and certain types of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. So people are out doing that with large language models because they want alternatives to commercial solutions. They don't want OpenAI to control all of this software either. And this is just one example I've come across recently here. ENQAI, I'm sure there are other ones who are claiming they will be fully uncensored. They could run externally. I've heard people talking about they're going to run these systems on boats parked slightly out in the ocean. So they're outside of national jurisdiction. Think of pirate radio, if that means anything to people in the old days where people would broadcast their radio stations slightly outside. So all these kind of things are coming as well. So I think there's only so far you can legislate in these type of areas. So this technology is very hard to control and police. It's very hard to detect. It's very hard to go away. It can be powerful if you learn how to use it in the correct way. So I wanted to leave some time for discussion. those demos have actually gone fairly well compared to how nothing has completely crashed, even though, as you saw, I could actually run things faster on my own machine than I could relying on ChatGPT at the moment to run that. What kind of things should we do about this? Well, these are talks in their own right, and I've deliberately kept this at quite an introductory level, but you may have seen some things you didn't know about in this session, and there are lots of great ideas in the chat. To me, a huge amount of this is what Hannah is saying. It's about thinking about learning. It's thinking about how to work with this technology to support students, thinking about they will be using this in the real world. And something I saw posted yesterday that students were saying, why is everyone in education talking about how this is being used for assessment? We don't use generative AI in this way. We use it to improve our photos. We use this as Snapchat filters. They've told me we use this to learn. We use this to get a summary of a talk so we don't have to watch our lecturer waffle for an hour and we can just get the meat to help us with our revision. So there are all kinds of great ways you can go and use this technology. You might look and say, well, I've used this on the slides to add some images. I've used this on the slides to improve the layout, just to make them look a bit better than if I was going away straight away and doing this way for this. But what kind of things? I think you should all go out there and just see what technology is being used. I've given very general examples. This is used different ways in different disciplines by different people. If you hear from, say, a Centre for Academic Writing, you may be thinking about this technology in a different way. If you hear teaching medicine, you might be thinking about opportunities to use this to provide access to academic papers that you might not know about there. Different things work differently in different disciplines. I certainly know that, like computer scientists, people are using this to program more efficiently, but they can't use this technology without knowing how to program because it still makes too many mistakes there. You might be thinking, okay, we can write a prompt, but if the prompt isn't very good, the output isn't very good. If a student can't write in English very well, can they write a good prompt? Some eagle-eyed people amongst you might have spotted there were spelling mistakes in some of my prompts there, but the output was still reasonable because it is close enough to what is required, things that I've only noticed afterwards for this. I think there's a huge amount of stuff about learning outcomes, getting our module design right, getting our learning outcomes right. People say, well, we'll assess people's ability to use this technology. That's all well and good. I think we should do that somewhere on a course. But if you've got learning outcomes in your module, which doesn't say we're assessing using technology to do this, we're assessing your ability to use this. Does this still match? Or do we need to review our module design for this? There are all kinds of challenges out here in terms of things like bias, in terms of things like the potential for misuse. I showed you one example. I could have a great discussion about blackmail and contract cheating and some of the very nasty things that are going on in the world. Probably not large language model driven, but they very easily could be for this. But this could very easily be used to generate fake news and to give misleading information. Programmatically, we could flood social media with the wrong ideas there. I mean, misuse, yes, it says in a chat, can work in multiple ways there. You can certainly get people, academics, misusing this technology as well. You can certainly get researchers misusing the technology. These are all kinds of different things. We could think about equity of access to this technology there. What happens when some students can pay for access, some students can't? Well, actually, when you saw the speed that ChatGPT is working up at the moment, then there probably isn't that much of an advantage of having access to the paid version when you should tell people, go away and use Claude, go away and find an alternative. But that will change as technology changes as well. Sustainability is a massive area for many students as well. These systems are not free to run. These systems that are being trained, so the uncensored model I showed you, just use massive amounts of computing power. I believe a computing company donated huge amounts of GPU time to get that running and to make sure there was these unrestricted models out there in the marketplace as well. Students as partners, what do our students think? I don't know if you've got any students with us today, but if you are, that's great. Please do go ahead and tell us your views about this. And digital literacy, another term that's come up in the chat alongside disruptive technology. Great words as well there. People are saying we need to tell students what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And of course, I completely agree about that because it's so impossible to tell, isn't it? But so some good things I've seen in this area, things like cover sheets, asking a student to say what type of technology to use. I'm going to ask you a question now that would come up in there. What about if a student writes a draft of an assignment for themselves, but then they use a system like this to suggest improved wording? Is that acceptable? I suspect it will be in most cases, but those kind of things are often not clearly spelt out to everyone there. Olu says we need an artificial morality, artificial ethics. Yeah, I mean, that could be a great topic of discussion. I'm not going to go too far into that one there. I think sometimes we don't even have a consistent view about ethics amongst ourselves for that one. It is a balance. I know this is an academic integrity type session. I've barely mentioned these words apart from perhaps using it in the examples because we need our students to learn and be equipped for their future lives. You ask, by the way, these systems to generate pictures of artificial intelligence. It nearly always wants to do something to do with weighing scales. And if you drill down as to why that happens, then there are loads of pictures of scales associated with academic integrity online, which presumably go back to ethics at some point for that. But so often it wants to do that there. But we need to know our students are learning to go alongside that there. Good point. We tell our students what they miss out on if they only use these systems. Yeah. Well, I would not ever entrust things solely to generative AI and large language models because it does not write like me or develop things that sound like me and sound like my ideas there. Now, I can prompt it in that way. I can give it suggestions. I could say, give it a copy of this talk and say, there's loads of my ideas in this talk. Go and build upon it. That's the kind of thing it can do. But I can't just expect it to sound like me out of the box. And of course, the way I speak and the way I write are not going to be identical either, as they aren't for so many of us for that there. But what I could do is use it to be creative. I could say, well, I've given now 20 talks in this area. Give me some new ideas for titles. That's being creative. That's probably using it in a good way. I could say, well, I'd like a nice image to illustrate this slide. Can you give me some ideas about what images should be? One thing I quite often say is, give me some ideas for images that don't have humans in them. Because you have humans in them, then you have challenges with bias in the type of people that are generated. They're all the same ethnicity sometimes for that. I've got great examples of that at other times as well that we could use too. And you have things like misformed faces and pictures there as well to go with it for that. So things that we could do. Yeah, even staff I see in the chat on a PG cert, postgraduate certificate in academic practice, who are being asked to acknowledge their use of AI. Yeah, I've heard that recently, incidentally, about staff on teaching qualifications potentially misusing AI. When does misuse come in, though? I don't know if there are any of my colleagues here, because they don't always join with their own names. I was asked recently to write a draft module spec at quite short notice. And I came up with a lot of the details, but I'm afraid I got completely stalled by the point I had to write learning outcomes. So I did put this information into one of these systems and said, can you generate some sample learning outcomes for me and use words from Bloom's taxonomy and things that staff don't always remember to do? And it came up with quite a nice set. I didn't use exactly what came up with. I rewrote them and merged them together, but it certainly helped me to think of some good terminology to give accessible type things and to speed along. And I don't feel that was a misuse of that technology there. As it happened, that module I was asked to develop at short notice has never gone for approval or been used anywhere. So I'm glad I didn't spend too much time on it, but it may well reappear at some point over the next year for that. So it is over to you very much to chat. In the chat, it says, is it the simplest way to avoid essays wherever possible? Well, I have got into my 21st year in a lecturing type position and never sat an essay. So it is perfectly quite possible to avoid essays. However, if I'm completely fair, I have asked for reports, I have asked for literature reviews, I have asked for written type of work, but they're not always that common in computing. You can ask for alternative things, but you could ask for things like, can you write bullet points for PowerPoint slides? Or even, could you put them in a downloadable PowerPoint document, which I can edit? That's quite possible. I think there's a YouTube video I put up a while ago there, where I show creating the bullet points, then loading them up into PowerPoint and clicking on PowerPoint Slide Designer, and it lays them out in a good way. So there are all kinds of things you can do, but you may consider that is good use of the technology to go with that. Chat is so great for this one. By the way, feel free to connect with me. I'm going to stop sharing my screen though, so we can talk a bit easier for this one. Do the regulations vary for different types of students? Yes, of course they should do for this, because there are all kinds of different students or different levels. There are places where we might want to assess the student's ability to work without AI. There are places we might want to assess our ability to work with AI. What is poor quality use? Is it copy and pasting? That's always been poor quality use for that one. Should we assume everyone is using AI? I see some nods. Now I can see more of you on the screen than I could when I was sharing my screen there. I think we have to assume there's a certain amount of AI use going on in the background, most definitely for that. Whether that is misuse is where this question goes for that. But of course, if people are not trained to use AI in the right way, then will they be able to evaluate the quality of the information and the correctness of that information? Even in that quick essay generating example I showed you, that it wasn't a particularly good essay, but I'm not a business person to go away and be able to assess it particularly well for that one. What other types of assignments could you do? Is it a good idea to use Vivas? Is it a good idea to use exams? Right? Is it a good idea to have an exam where you get people to use ChatGPT and hand in the results? Those kind of things you could do if you chose to do that one. People are saying about put all the use of AI in the appendices. I mean, you can do, but I hate to be the person who has to read those appendices and look through everything that was done. And I would say get people to save the chat, though, in case it's needed to verify things for what you're doing. It's amazing how many people don't have any of their previous drafts, or their computer has gone down on them when they're asked for them. That happens there. Yeah, a great example about generating multiple choice questions. You can generate them in format. I don't know about Kahoot, but you can generate things. A while ago, people asked me about mind maps. You can generate things in mind map format to load into mind mapping software, which essentially is just a text file with some tags and markup for this one as well. Stick people in a room with a pencil and paper. You can do that. Just tell them how to use pencil sharpeners. It's not always as obvious as it might be for people who don't do that. I hate handwriting, right? And I can see the wonderful Steph has rejoined us now as we're coming towards the end of our time for this one. Hopefully, I mean, there's no shortage of things. We could talk for hours on this subject, and I could show you examples for all kinds of things that you might be interested in. We've barely even touched graphics here. Steph, what's your take home from today?
I think you've already mentioned it, Thomas. We haven't got enough time, and we could talk for hours and hours. The questions that have been coming up are they are concerns, and some of us are, a bit ahead of this and the other, but we need to practice more with these bits of software, seems to be the message. But we're also very interested in, how can we utilize this range of software? And it seems to me we don't have, we want to run ahead, but we haven't got enough hours in the day. So I'm very conscious of the time, because I know folk also have to go off and do other things. So can I just say at this time, Thomas, thank you so much for this sort of whirlwind introductory tour of Gen AI and the LLM technologies, because there's so much to think about, and you've picked up a lot of those key questions in the chat box, which is great. I'd like to thank everyone today who's come to join us, really firstly to Thomas for sharing his extensive knowledge. Every day is a learning day for sure. But can I also thank on your behalf the fabulous Verity, with a little round of applause, for helping keep the Zoom room going, and everything going on in the background there. And for Ed for monitoring the chat box. But thank you mostly for yourselves, because without you, we wouldn't be here today. We often tend to rush into the next thing, and so hopefully you can take a break before you go on to your next thing, but take a while to reflect on everything you've heard today and everything you've contributed, because it's very rich information and things we need to think about. So I'm Steph Allen, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you next time. And again, thank you for your time. And in the meantime, go well, go safe, take care. Bye for now.